Welcome everyone to the SoCal Car Scene Podcast, the exclusive place for coverage of car culture in Southern California and the personalities that drive it. I'm your host, Dean Marash. Please make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss a show. Joining us today is Brad Harvey, the founder of Cars, Coffee and Donuts, San Diego. But first, we need to let you know that this podcast is brought to you by our great friends at SoCal Classic Car Storage. Also, we want to let you know that we're now on Patreon. Patreon is a great website that supports independent podcasts like the SoCal Car Scene by helping them with fundraising via subscriptions. If you're an avid listener of these episodes, we humbly ask you to consider contributing $3 a month for our show. That support will go a long way to providing you even better content through better equipment and our crew. In exchange for your support, you'll have access to episodes one day before they premiere, and you'll get to see extended interviews from our guests like Brad. Sign up today at patreon.com/the SoCal Car Scene or click on the link in the description. And without further ado, let's get to our guest, Brad Harvey. A SoCal kid, Brad started out doing car things with his hot rod builder dad and then went all in on cars. Out of high school, he built a few cars with local short track racers at Cajon Speedway. His addiction to racing extended out into the streets of San Diego and then on to drag racing series like the Pacific Street Car Association and NHRA Import. In 2005, his efforts paid off and he won the NHRA Las Vegas event. Now in 2020, Brad's racing passion lies in indoor and outdoor kart racing. Additionally, and most importantly for our San Diego listeners, he's the founder of Cars, Coffee and Donuts, San Diego. They meet at the end of the month at Donut Touch Bakery and Café in Mira Mesa. Brad, hey, thanks for joining us on the SoCal Car Scene.
Yeah, of course, Dean. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Oh, we're so excited. Hey, tell us all about this Cars and Coffee and Donuts in San Diego, man. You know what? We're here in the OC, so we don't get down there enough. But this whole thing's blown up. You've been doing this for what, over 5 years?
Yeah, about 5.5 years now.
No way.
Been very lucky with it from just an attendance standpoint. And of course, the people that show up are really what make it unique and great for everyone to, they're in San Diego and throughout Southern California. Initially started it as I didn't get to go to the Saturday meets at the time because I was working and also racing as well. So my schedule was such that I couldn't go to the other Cars and Coffee events. So I said, I can probably do this once a month, and I put it in kind of central San Diego initially, and little did I realize what's really involved with having that style of an event, because the organization that goes into it, the social media aspect of it that you utilize to be able to expand it and be able to put it out there to everybody, especially within the car community because it's so large. So we have 5.5 years of doing it, and we've been successful with just about every meet we've ever had.
So tell me, are people coming from the OC, from LA, from other counties like Riverside, Temecula? Where are they coming from? How far do you think?
Mostly San Diego. I did have some guys down from Temecula just last month for our meet that we had, and I've had some guys come down from Orange County a little bit. Last year in 2019, I actually expanded the meet a little bit and actually had one that was here in Orange County, and then I had another one in Temecula, and then I had the San Diego meet going at the same time. So every weekend I was somewhere with one of these meets. And then of course the San Diego one was the main one, and that really seemed to sort of solidify it throughout basically the car culture of Southern California, and it expanded it quite a bit.
So what, it's the key question is, what drives a guy to start a car show? It's almost in the realm of, so what the hell were you thinking?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
I mean, people are like, that sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I know we're all passionate about cars, so
yeah,
what makes you want to start one?
The passion for cars as a whole, and growing up with it, being a typical kid in Southern California, growing up and doing car stuff with his dad, and dad was the family hot rodder, and got into initially, like you had mentioned, racing a little bit. As a kid, I always knew I wanted to race cars. And what had ended up happening was I met some guys that ran out at Cajon Speedway, back where Jimmy Johnson ran. I believe Ken Schrader ran out there. I know both Bruce brothers ran out there when they were coming up through the NASCAR ranks, and got to help some short track guys. And at the same time, I wanted a course to race. I didn't just want to wrench. And I went on to go drag racing and spent the better part of 15 years drag racing all over the Southwest, and getting into national events, and eventually getting away from the street aspect of things a little bit, and just took it to the next level. And what happened was, the passion for cars and hot rodding and seeing different cars that I don't always get to see made me say, hey, I could, why don't I do one of these? And little did I know what it takes to organize one and be successful with it, and the hours of work that goes into it.
So is part of the problem of starting one is that you can't stop it because people are having too much fun.
Yeah.
And they're like, man, we love this. Thanks,
Yeah.
Brad. We'll see you next time.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, they're inviting their friends. And so people are counting on you. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you built a family and the family's getting bigger. So Brad doesn't have an exit strategy,
Yeah,
right?
there really isn't one.
You know, the world could turn ugly on you, Brad, and they could protest if you shut this down, right?
In fact, we actually did shut it down with everything that's been going on with the COVID situation.
I was going to ask you about that. Tell us about that.
We had our January meet this year. We had the February meet, which was the 5-year anniversary.
Right.
And usually the anniversary meets are a little bit bigger because it's an anniversary meet. More guys come out, and we probably had well over 300 cars at that. And then we couldn't do it in March, and we didn't do it in April. And March is, of course, kind of ties in with the March meet that happens up in Bakersfield and the way we market it a little bit with what goes on up there.
Yeah.
And then April is the spring meet. And then in May, I said, well, things are starting to calm down a little bit in San Diego. Why don't we, try one? So I put it out there and said, hey, we're back in April. Well, within about 10 minutes of our start time, the place was completely filled up.
You got mobbed.
And local PD ended up showing up.
Did they really?
And mostly it wasn't because of us sitting in a parking lot and having coffee and donuts in the morning. It was because people were doing things outside of the venue, so to speak, that they got phone calls about. And at the same time, it was the same weekend that we had riots down in San Diego.
Oh, yeah.
And the local PD were afraid that that was going to happen there, so they sort of broke it up, and that was that for that one. And then we went on to doing June, and June was a lot more relaxed and ended up having a really good crowd. We averaged anywhere from 250 to the meet last month had over 320 cars is when I stopped counting, and there was just so many people that attended. It was like, I can't keep counting everybody.
So do you have to pay attention to local politics? Because this COVID thing is very political. Nobody should
Sure.
debate that. We've seen it on television every night, still going on.
Oh, yeah.
But, like we look at football. In some states and some conferences, game on.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, some of those games I saw this weekend, there were fans. Pac-12 still shut down. Pac-10 stopped talking about, or not Pac-10, but Big Ten starting in October.
Yeah, heard that
So,
today.
again, it has a lot to do with the local politics.
Sure.
Did you have to be thinking about that, from a liability standpoint, or were you just trying to kind of, sense trying to basically gauge, what the right thing to do is?
Sure. Yeah. Initially, it was sort of, okay, what's happening locally throughout the city and not attracting the wrong type of attention to what we do. Because anything that really happens, it reflects upon other Cars and Coffee events that happen,
Right.
not just in San Diego, but throughout
Right.
Southern California.
Yep.
So as I took a step back from things and watched what was happening, as everybody was slowing down and everyone was saying we're no longer doing our meet this month. All the car people are going online going, what are we going to do? Everyone's just sitting around at home. We want something to go do. So it's something that I've kind of kept a close eye on. San Diego has been, they're pretty strict about some things down there. Of course, they say they are. Their enforcement levels are questionable at best,
very,
like it is throughout Southern California.
Right.
So it's kind of a thing where I'm keeping an eye on it. My other buddies are keeping an eye on it. They'll also have Cars and Coffee events down there as well, and we're just kind of going with whatever happens at the moment. So
do you guys feel an obligation to pay attention to protocols and worry about social distancing and make sure everybody's got a mask on, or do you ask people to use common sense? I mean,
Sure.
You're the guy that's running this thing, and so
Yeah.
what is your guidance for your flock, if you will?
Sure. At the moment, I'm telling everybody, definitely as you're a patron of the businesses that we're supporting at the same time of our event, make sure you wear a mask because that's what they require. As you're walking around outside, if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, I'm not going to say anything to you. I'm not the police. It's up to you. Obviously the social distancing aspect, it's somewhat easy to do because everyone's walking around taking a look at other people's cars. People say hi to each other from a distance, or they go right up to their buddy and give them a hug because they haven't seen them in a month or 2 months.
Yeah.
So there's both aspects of that going on, just as kind of what we've seen publicly throughout Southern California with anything.
Common sense, but you don't want to be the police. So
Sure.
You got to find the right balance.
Sure.
Yeah.
And I want people to be able to show up and have a good time and not worry about it. And like I say, and what we put on most of the advertisements of things through social media is, do what you feel is best. If you are sick and have flu-like symptoms, don't show up. But if you're feeling up for it, you want to get out of the house, come and join us and come bring the kids, come bring the family dog, come bring the wife, because it is open to everybody, and we want everyone to have a good time while they're there.
Wives. Okay, that's interesting. No, so one of the things, we had Simon on before this all, Simon Ware, who runs the Orange County, South OC, Cars and Coffee.
They have a huge Cars and Coffee.
And, we had him in here before we were doing the video podcast, right? Like we're doing today. And one of the things that shocked me is how much work goes into it. How many people are down there taking videos? How many people are taking pictures? His son was with him that day, James, and he does all the social media and all this. And I'm like, you know, it is a big commitment. So you probably have some volunteers, people that are help you?
I don't.
Do it all yourself?
I'm doing it all.
Social media as well?
Yeah, the social media aspect is all me. Everything on Twitter, everything on Instagram, everything on Facebook. I'm the one doing the postings. The initial logo that was created by a longtime car buddy of mine. When I first got things going and we were talking about how are we going to expand this, it was like, well, you need to kind of have a logo. You need to start to have a social media presence by about the second or third meet. And that's when the Facebook aspect came into play and the Instagram account came into play. And there's a Twitter account that kind of bounces off of everything to just have that aspect of social media going. And it is a big monster as you start really getting into it, as you start to watch like the content that we put out on the Facebook fan page.
It's excellent.
Because we're only once a month, and there's more going on once a month than just my meet. So when I initially got started, one of the other Cars and Coffee meets down there, Seabad Cars, who Richard Rebello runs, and he was really advocate in helping me out and helped me get going. And he's been doing it for 15 years now, and his is every Saturday.
Wow, that's great. So he's paying it forward by helping you?
Yeah, and he helps me, and I now help him out, and we kind of go back and forth.
Awesome.
And there's some other Cars and Coffee meets down there that I've helped out, and we all hang out outside of our Cars and Coffee meets. We'll go to other car meets in San Diego, and we'll sit there and have coffee and look at cars that we can't afford because they're high-end exotics or muscle cars that are rebuilt that are hundreds of thousands of dollars, and they're beautiful builds, but it's stuff that we get to enjoy because when we're at our meets, we're so busy talking to people, and especially at mine, so many people know me. It becomes a situation where I know these guys, I know these guys, I know these guys, and I'm trying to take photos of 300 cars that are potentially there.
Yeah, right.
So you can imagine how much is happening.
Well, one of the things you and I talked about before we got this show started was this monster called content.
Yeah.
And we're all in the content business. You're in that business. I'm in that business.
Sure.
Here we are producing a video, thanks to Jason, who's in the background doing all the hard work. And you and I are just flapping our gums. But it strikes me that it's not your father's car show. No. Because in the old days, you'd open up the parking lot, let people come, and then they'd go home. But now you've got to promote it. You've got to show off. You've got to attract people,
Sure.
But you got to attract the right people. And the other thing we find very interesting is Simon's involved in this name and shame aspect because he's got a lot of people with some high performance cars they want to show off.
Yeah.
They want to share it with the neighbors, which is a good way to get the show kicked out. We had a great show in Aliso Viejo at Cars and Coffee. Eventually got closed down because of the neighbors got pissed off. So do you guys have any of that problem with neighbors? Are you in a great place? Or?
I've been very lucky. When I initially started, we were in a little bit of a smaller parking lot. And of course, I started it in a donut shop, which is why it's Cars, Coffee, and Donuts initially, is because there's so many Cars and Coffee.
By the way, that's very passé.
You got Cars and Coffee San Diego, Cars and Coffee Orange County, Cars and Coffee LA. So I said, why don't we do it at a donut shop? And let's not just do it at like a Dunkin' Donuts or a Krispy Kreme. Let's actually do it at a small family-run business. Let them benefit from, at the end of the month, here comes potentially 200 customers. You're having a slow month. Here comes a bunch of customers. So the first spot we had was actually a little bit of a smaller parking lot. The first meet I ever did, we had 60 cars. And I was blown away. I didn't think it would be that big. And then the second month, we almost doubled it. And the third month, we outgrew the spot. And it was like,
out you go.
Uh-oh. And it was because social media had taken over and more people got wind of what's going on. And it was a new meet in San Diego. And it was on a Sunday of all things. Most of these always happen on Saturdays. And Sundays, you sometimes compete a little bit with, well, the family goes to church. And we've got football and the kids got soccer. So I was lucky enough to be able to build on that a little bit. And then we went to our other spot that we had, our second spot, which was at a Krispy Kreme. It was a bigger parking lot. And the last meet of the year, for the first year, we had over 300 cars. And local PD showed up because the parking lot security hadn't been doing their job. And the head of security showed up, and the guy said, you can't do this. And I looked at him and I went, well, we've got 300 people showing up in about 10 minutes. There's nothing I can do. Yeah. And he said, well, we're going to call the cops. I said, yeah, go ahead. There's an undercover right there. There's another undercover over there. They're already here. They know what we're doing. So SDPD showed up, and the guy asked, what is this? And I told him. He's like, oh, okay, I get it. It's kind of like some of the other events that happen in town. Yeah. And he said, well, let me talk to property management for you. And for them, it's a liability.
Sure it is.
A few minutes go by, and the cop comes back, and right in front of the head of security goes, well, look, here's the deal. Everyone here is a patron of the business. We get it. I'm not going to start ticketing people because I'll just be wasting my time.
Right.
And I have better things to do today than to babysit you guys right in front of the head of security. And I just
You loved every minute.
I just kind of smiled and said, well, if you guys want to stay and hang out, they got a good breakfast over there. They got good coffee.
Well, you know what?
And it helped build the rapport.
All of us enjoy the car shows, go to the car shows.
Yeah.
You don't hear about it enough, but we appreciate all the hard work and all those kinds of conversations that we're not privy to, but we know must be happening at every week, because you seem like all these shows are on a ragged edge of, like Simon said last week, he had some local neighbor videotaping because maybe the previous week somebody did some burnouts or whatever. So there's somebody that, that's, annoyed, antagonized, and really it's not part of their life, and they want it coming to an end. So we just appreciate all that you do.
Yeah, it goes with the territory a little bit.
So thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And speaking of appreciation, I got to give a shout out to one of our sponsors. I hope you didn't trip over all their good stuff, but you see it everywhere on the floor. These things are plugged in for a reason, and I have to give a shout out to C-Tech. C-Tech is our partner of choice when it comes to battery tenders. Are you looking for a smarter way to charge your car's battery? Our friends at C-Tech lead the way in the care and maintenance of vehicle batteries. C-Tech's unparalleled knowledge and continuous investment in innovation means they offer high quality, reliable chargers that are effective, easy to use, and most importantly, safe for the user and their car's electric system. The quality of C-Tech's products make them the trusted company of the world's most recognizable car brands, including Audi, Bentley, BMW, Corvette, Ford, Ferrari, Maserati, Mercedes, Porsche, and numerous others. Get yours today at smartercharger.com. So, switching gears just a little bit, somewhat along the car show scene, have you noticed the trend of cruises growing rapidly? We talked a little bit about, this notion of cruise-ins, and now we have got a big one down in Huntington Beach that's been going on for 7, and they got to schedule one of the 8th one, which is the quarantine cruises, right? And so that thing is blown up.
It's huge. I think I went to the 3rd one.
Did you go to the 3rd one? I went to the 7th one.
Yeah, and I was surprised how many people were at it. And I think a lot of it at the time was because, well, there's no car shows going on. Where are we going to go? Right. We started seeing SEMA quality builds at that, and I was pretty amazed at it. And I was like, well, I'm glad I'm not in my car, because I just have a regular, just a driver. I'm looking at stuff going, geez, these are not cheap builds. There's some work in some of this. So there's some labor into it.
Once the COVID crisis is behind us, and it's all clear, if you will, if there's such a thing.
Yeah.
Who knows if it will be. Do you see a place for these cruise-ins? And how does that alter the traditional car show like yours down in San Diego? Or does it? Or is it just a plus-up where we've got another venue for people to get out and share their cars with others?
It kind of aids in things a little bit, and it can take away from things a little bit if it's on the same weekend and we didn't have the COVID thing going on. I was competing on other weekends with other events that were happening, especially in San Diego, sometimes throughout Southern California, because more of the bigger car builds would want to go up to LA for the big show. And like when Good Guys is in town, for example, that is a big event down in Del Mar, and of course they didn't have it this year. And with all the car buddies that I hang out with down there, we like to get together, go to breakfast, and go to it on the Saturday or Sunday and see all the builds and hang out with everybody. La Jolla Concourse is another one that down there that's real big, and that's like a mini Pebble Beach, and it's cool to see because you're seeing the quality of vehicle you wouldn't normally see. You're seeing priceless builds that are just amazing and museum pieces. And I got to go last year for the first time, and living in San Diego for 36 years, never been.
Funny. Jason and I have never been either.
Yeah,
and we were all poised to go this year.
Yeah.
Right? Of course.
Of course. I really wanted to go to Pebble Beach this year and go see Car Week. And even with the expense of it a little bit, I thought, okay, I'm going to take a few days off from the day job and go up and really get to see this. And then, of course, they canceled that. I think they canceled Hot August Nights, too, up in Reno.
But do you see these cruise-ins, or whatever you call them, as a separate kind of show?
A little bit.
And not necessarily impacting traditional car shows? I mean, there's still a car show element, right? Once you get to the destination, like I said, I did the cruise-in, or the quarantine cruise number 7, and I felt like I was at a regular car show. But some of the builds were pretty extraordinary.
Of course,
but, I felt like very car showish.
Yeah.
So it's sort of a hybrid thing, and it's nice to see something different, I guess, is my perspective.
Definitely. It's good that we can do that and have that sort of culture aspect here in Southern California. I mean, cruising and hot rodding basically came from Southern California and Detroit.
Right.
Some of the ones do go take place in San Diego. There was one there in Ramona town, or city of Ramona, that they started doing a cruise again, and it kind of kept everybody in their cars, and they cruised the neighborhoods up there. We had something called Cruising Grand, which is in Escondido, which is a well-known muscle car night in the city of Escondido. Everything that's 1979 and older, I believe, is what they put on display. And that's sort of a...
Kind of a Woodward cruise equivalent, but local.
Yeah, but local, and that was fun. That was Friday nights, get off work and change clothes and run over and go check it out and go see some cars that you would normally see elsewhere. So it also, it adds to the aspect of the car culture there in San Diego, and it's some of those are pretty well known throughout Southern California. Some guys will come down for those.
Well, go figure. COVID-19, the mother of invention.
Yeah,
right?
No kidding.
On the car scene. Hey, speaking of car scenes, Orange County has a different vibe than LA.
A little bit, yeah.
You know, when you go to the LA shows, you see a lot more older exotic cars. You know, stuff you don't see here.
Sure.
You know, like older German cars, Italian cars, stuff that's not as pretty per se. You go to Huntington Beach, you hang out with the derelicts down there, Dota derelicts,
Yeah.
and you're like, wow, that's a totally different vibe. So there's almost subcultures even in Orange County. But what's the biggest difference you see between San Diego and Orange County, or do you see much of a difference? Cars and people.
Yeah, a little bit. The vibe is a little bit different in San Diego. Everyone's kind of laid back throughout Southern California, but it kind of depends, like with my Cars and Coffee style of event, different months will have different cars on hand. Some months we'll have more exotic, some months we'll have more of the import aspect. Some months it's more muscle cars. A lot of the times it's hard to get certain genres of people to show up. Like the lowrider guys stick with the lowrider guys a lot of times because they're in their own world, and the amazing aspect of them is they'll spend 20 grand on a paint job, whereas the muscle car guys are using the same paint booth guy because it's restoration and whatnot and rust repair and that sort of thing, but they stick with the muscle car guys. So trying to get everybody to come together, there's some difficulties there for sure. And I see a pretty big mix in San Diego, like you do in Orange County and parts of LA. Who shows up where, that sort of thing.
Yeah, one of the things that we've noticed as our business has evolved, we're about to have our 5th year anniversary at SoCal Classic, and Jay pointed this out after he got here a couple years ago. Dad, the mix of cars is changing.
Sure.
And I hadn't seen it, but it's become more and more exotic, more and more high performance.
Yeah.
Younger people, less of the classics, less of the traditional muscle cars.
Sure.
And so we've seen this evolution in just 5 years. Now, I don't know if our business is attracting a different target market or that's just what's happening to the car community.
Sure.
I had a guy look at the Corvette earlier today, this C8 that's here, and he didn't like it at all. But he drives these 60s era land yachts.
Yeah.
I don't like this car at all. Look at what they've done here.
Yeah.
But I think Corvette did exactly what I just said. They saw what's been happening in the last 5 years, this shift to younger people that want more performance.
Sure.
They want an edgier looking car. They're not interested in the muscle cars or the classics. So, there is somewhat of a metamorphosis, don't you think?
A little bit, yeah. I mean,
going
even, talking about like the Corvette and the way it looks, and I mean, my dad had a C4, and the Corvette was never really geared towards someone who was in their 20s and 30s because it was a little bit out of the price range of the average 20 and 30-year-old. And now Corvette's trying to do that a little bit with the price point that they have. I actually drove one of the very first ones to come to Southern California. It was a 3LT Z51 package. And it had 100 miles on it when I drove it, and it was interesting to feel the vehicle and the way it turned, and of course the power that was there because it had pretty decent power. And being a mid-motor car and the handling of the vehicle and that sort of thing was definitely different than from the traditional, what was a front engine rear drive. Some guys still call it a mid-motor because the motor is so far back against the
it almost
the
is in the
firewall
back of the car.
Yeah, and now the motor's behind you, so you've got to tune into a little bit of the aspect of what is in demand now. And a lot of the classic stuff, and we see this going to say like the Good Guys show, a lot of the people that own those cars aren't my age, and I'm 42. So it's kind of a thing where I think in 10 years you're going to have a lot of classics that are suddenly going to come on the market because the people that may inherit that vehicle may not know how to work on it, may not know what to do with it, may not want it because it's
and we're already seeing that because we consign a lot of cars. So we're selling a lot of cars that are in the 30s, 40s, because gentlemen are aging out or they're passing on.
Yeah.
And the kids have no interest in those vehicles.
Well, and it's sad.
And most people can't even drive them.
Yeah.
They can't even drive the cars.
I can't wait to be about 10 years from now to see what really comes on in the market, because there's going to be some great cars out there and some pieces of artwork that are going to be available.
Art. That's a great point.
Yeah.
So one of the things you touched on a little bit is your racing background,
and
your wrenching background, and that's probably where you got your start, like many of us did, wrenching in the yard with our old man on a variety of stuff. Is it your dad that you credit or blame for dragging you into this nightmare? This madness?
Oh, my first word as a kid when I was learning how to talk was actually transmission. Dad at the time had a 70.
No kidding.
Yeah, he had a 74 GTO, and he was taking a hydromatic transmission out of it. As anybody that's ever had a Pontiac kind of knows, that those things were not the best. And I was running around in the walker and stuff, and I would take my little Hot Wheels, flip them over, and point it where the transmission was. My parents were like, "What?" And then my second word was cores. So I think I was destined from there to be doing car stuff and mechanic work, and kind of always helped Dad in the garage. Dad was the family hot rodder. And as I got older, I wanted to race cars and be involved in that aspect of it, but where do you start? And wasn't doing the karting thing like I am now. It was more or less, well, if you want to do this, you need to go help guys. So we had Cajon Speedway there in San Diego, where Jimmy Johnson came out of, I think Ken Schrader. The Bush brothers ran there when they were kind of coming up through the ranks. And I helped a street stock guy and helped a bomber stock guy, but eventually I said, I want to race as well. So went drag racing, and of course went drag racing in the aspect that everybody did in the mid-90s, and found my way to the streets of things. And you kind of learn a lot in the streets and in that industry. And I still talk to guys from back then. I'm good friends with a lot of them. One of them is one of my mechanics he went on to become a American Le Mans Series for R18 principal.
Wow.
So he took it to another level, whereas I took it to a different level. And it went from there. Spent the better part of 15 years traveling the Southwest and drag racing between.
Well, it's between
the NHRA, the Pacific Street Car Association, ran in import events.
Good for you.
Yeah, had a shot at being able to drive for a team, and kind of was signed, and the team didn't really work out because of mismanagement. And I went back to working and helping guys. Yeah. So the last two big drag cars I was with, one was an Outlaw 10.5 car, big turbo Mustang of all things, made about 3,000 horse. And I was the only guy on the team that wrenched on the car, and it was the driver who tuned it, and he packed the chutes, and that was it. And then money went away for him, and I went over to a guy that had what was called a 275 tire. It was called a Wild Street car in the Pacific Street Car Association. That was about a 2,000 horsepower single turbo Mustang. Wow. And we held the record for speed, and I think ET at one point in time on the West Coast. If not, I think in the United States. Now that's a 275 radial tire, which is about yay wide at 2,000 horsepower with no wheelie bars, and we're going 750s in the quarter.
So, again, that sounds old school now, because I get on, I watch TV, right, and I see what's going on. No Prep Kings. Yeah. All this stuff's on TV huge. Now, and they're doing it at the track now.
Yeah.
But they're doing what you did on the street, and now they're doing it on the track.
Yeah.
And basically, they got production crews around them, and
it's incredible.
You know what? It's still the same stuff, except there's sponsors and there's money and
there's definitely some money involved.
Production and drama. And you got to create all that stuff, but. It still keeps it all alive for all of us, either wannabes like myself or people that have actually done it like yourself. And it's like a drug you can't get out of your system.
You really can't.
So are you still actively racing cars?
A little bit.
You're into this karting, right?
Yeah.
Tell us just a little bit about that.
In between the drag race stuff, I had car guys, hey, let's go do an indoor kart night. Okay, let's go see what this is like. I've never done this before. And of course, the bug bit of going racing. And as the drag race stuff went away, of course, as guys ran out of money, it was like, well, I'm going to go back to driving. So I went from doing indoor karting to outdoor sport karting, which is like an indoor kart outdoor. And then it became, hey, you want to see what it's like to drive a competition kart. And that's 15,000 RPM at 110 plus mile an hour.
Oh, no kidding.
And when you're sitting this high up off the ground and you're going that fast,
it feels like 300.
Yeah, you feel like you're screaming. And you're doing it with 30 other guys going into turn one all at once on a Sunday afternoon, who some of the guys have to work Monday, some of them don't. So you find out the kind of cojones you have going into turn one with 30 other guys real quick.
It changes the whole meaning of a whole shot, right?
But you learn so much. You learn the aspect of driving beyond what I knew, because I went through drag race school there at Pomona. Actually, I had Jack Beckman was my driving instructor, and ran and did Super Comp, which was a 690s dragster at damn near 200. And I knew, straight line, pull the chute and slow down. Now it's, okay, you're going into the corner and you're going 80, but now you have to turn left or right. So the driving aspect changes a little bit, and you learn quite a bit of what you apply from karting to regular street driving to getting up into full-size cars, and it's really been fun to learn that aspect of it.
Well, I just feel like we're really fortunate here on this episode to have
Yeah.
Brad alive.
Yeah.
And you know what? I
That's
look
some
around,
moments.
he seems to have everything with him.
Yeah.
2 arms, 2 legs. I didn't count the fingers and the toes.
Yeah,
but
all the fingers are there.
There's a few broken bones, I'm imagining.
I've had a few. I've had some good close calls karting.
I bet you
I've
have.
got some ribs that I got almost turned over by a friend of mine right there at Fontana at Cal Speed Karting at a Los Angeles Karting Club event, and was up on 2 wheels. And when I came down, my rib vest came into my ribs, and I felt that for about 3 months. And every now and then, I still feel it a little bit when I turn it.
That's what friends are for. Right,
Yeah,
Brad?
exactly.
That's why we need friends.
Yeah.
Friends, without friends, who needs enemies?
Yeah, no kidding.
So one of our other great sponsors, Brad, as you might imagine, is this incredible facility here at SoCal Classic. So SoCal Classic Car Storage, this facility here in the lovely city of Laguna Hills, offers secure white glove vehicle storage and extensive concierge services. In addition to storage, our expert staff offers consignment services for those of you looking to sell their cars. For more information, visit us in Laguna Hills right here, or find us at SoCalCarStorage.com or Facebook.com/SoCal Car Storage. Yeah, it's easy to forget that part. But hey, so tell us about this little story, your dad's GTO.
Oh,
that
yeah.
Your dad had I think a 74 GTO, and then you found out who owned it.
Yeah.
And your dad used to own this car, and then you found out he was coming to your show, or did you encourage him to come to the show?
I encouraged him. What had happened was we came to San Diego in '85. It was Dad's kind of first hot rod. It was a 74 GTO, 400 with the 4-speed, I believe. And eventually, as you know, the technology in cars changed. Parents needed something with better fuel economy. My brother and I were getting older. The family hot rod had to be sold. And Dad had sold it to a guy up in, I believe, the Fallbrook, Temecula area. And about 5 or 6 years prior to me finding it, Mom and Dad were out in Temecula hanging out, and they saw, I believe, a 69 or 70 GTO. Went and took a look at it, and there was a Polaroid on the dash, and it said, "Rare GTO for sale, call this number."
No way.
And we tried to call the number, and the guy never returned the call.
Oh.
Well, I went to something called Cruise and Grand about 3-4 years ago there in Escondido, was walking down one of the side streets, and I see what looked to be like a GTO, but in 74 they looked like Monte Carlos. And I said, I got to go look at this. The sun's going down, my phone battery's dying, and I end up taking a couple photos of it, and I'm sending photos to my parents on their cell phones going, look at what I found. Mom says, take a picture of the VIN and take a picture of the license plate because it looks real familiar. And the car had a for sale sign on it. So I sent the photos to my parents. Of course, my cell phone dies. The owner comes up about 20, 30 minutes later and said, "Hey, GTO's for sale. Can I ask you a few questions about it?" He goes, "Yeah, no problem." So I ended up asking, typical questions. Are you the original owner? No, I'm actually the third owner. Okay. Is this the original color? No, the original color was actually a metallic brown.
Which you would have remembered.
Which I remembered. And, I repainted it black because the color just didn't, match what I really liked. And I said, that's interesting. I said, did it have a dealer tag riveted to the back trunk that said King Pontiac, Bethesda, Maryland? And he had his son with him, and his son's about my age, and his jaw dropped. He looks at me and goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "I grew up in the back seat." And he was blown away. He couldn't believe he was meeting the kid who grew up in the back seat of it.
What a story.
Yeah, my parents still had the original paperwork to it.
No
So
way.
I convinced him, and this was my first year of doing the Cars, Coffee, and Donuts meet. I said, I do this meet. It's down in San Diego. Do you mind bringing it down? Let's coordinate a little bit. My dad will come. And I didn't tell Dad anything. Mom knew, my brother knew. Brother brought the nephew and his wife and whatnot, and
You went all Chip Foose.
yeah,
Kind of punked him
a little bit. And he pulled in the parking lot, and Dad was almost in tears. He couldn't believe it. He goes, "That's my GTO." I said, "Yeah, I found your car, Dad." Dad had since bought a Porsche Boxster that was that metallic brown color. It's a 2014, 2015 body. And he parked over by it, and he met him, and I have photos of him sitting in it. The guy let him drive around the parking lot.
Did he really? Oh, that's
yeah.
nice.
So Dad got to drive it. It
Oh.
still had the original block, the original heads, the original intake manifold, the original hubcaps and bumpers, and I think the original rear end in it. So he kept a lot of it and restored a lot of it. The interior was looking a little rough. He wanted to sell it. Dad didn't tell me how much he wanted for it. I'm pretty sure if we had had the room, he may have said, let me give you a cash offer. But he kind of also figured, I had that car, let someone else enjoy it. So he let it go, and it was one of those moments. It's like a barn find moment, really.
Well, what a great story.
Yeah.
That's what makes cars so great. We've had so many guests talk about the people being more important than the car. So, there's not a lot of people coveting a 74 GTO.
No,
Matter of fact, a lot of people didn't even know that GTOs were made in 74,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, I don't think a lot of people would be able to pick one out of a crowd.
No.
But you know what? It's that car. It's the connection with the family, your father, growing up, helping
sure.
your dad work on that car,
Yeah,
painting that
helped him work on
car,
it, yeah.
slapping,
You know, I
slapping
came
some
home-
Earl Scheib black on
Yeah.
it, you know? That's what's cool.
Yeah, my brother and I both came home from the hospital in the back seat of that car.
No
so
way.
that was the kind of the cool thing, that the aspect of that, and getting to see it. I saw it one other time. It looked like a younger guy was driving it, kind of down the coast there in San Diego, and I couldn't tell if maybe the guy had actually sold it or if it was kid that was driving it. I haven't seen it since, and that was about 3-4 years ago.
So now the guy had the GTO for sale. Was your dad interested in buying it
To
again
a
or not?
degree, but it was sort of a thing where are they going to put it, because they didn't have the room for it. They didn't have a place like this where they could have put it.
We know where they could put it now.
Yeah, of course. It would have been great to have that then, but they, Dad kind of thought about it and said, let someone else enjoy it. I had my fun with it, and he had his hot rod with his Porsche that he's got, so it was kind of that thing where he said.
So you didn't dump a 455 or a 454 or something from the late 60s, like
it was a
69 or 70?
It was a 400 with a 4-barrel and a 4-speed, I believe, is what they had back then.
But by 74, they were pretty gutted out. Low compression, right?
Yeah, because of the gas crisis at the time, and insurance at the time too. It changed the muscle car industry kind of through the mid-70s. That really changed the aspect of what the manufacturers were offering, and that sort of killed the muscle car a little bit to a degree. And then
I tell Jay all the time, my dad was kind of in charge to some degree of what car I got.
Yeah.
Like my first car was a 64 Ford. Dad had a 352. And then the next car, within 6 months, I'd have another car before I turned 17. That was a 67 Cougar. But he would not let me get a big block car.
Yeah.
So all those beautiful Mopars of the days,
Sure.
all the Chargers, all the Challengers, all the stuff I coveted,
of course,
couldn't touch that.
Yeah.
Barracudas, none of that would he let me have.
Yeah.
Son, you won't be able to afford the insurance, and we're just not going to allow you to get that.
Yeah.
So I lived a life of small blocks.
Yeah.
But I had big block envy when I was a kid.
Sure.
And now, I'm around a lot of this stuff, and I get it, because right there over there is an Olds 442 W30 with a 4-speed, and it's still probably going to lose to most every Porsche in this place, and maybe even
It doesn't have the cool factor though.
It's just, it just feels so good. It makes so much noise, and I'm sure that's true even with the 74 GTO.
Yeah.
The feeling, the noise, right?
Yeah, it was different. And I think Dad's dad was the same way, and he would tell me stories of how Granddad wouldn't let him have certain options on the car.
Oh, really? Okay.
Because it was like.
Now you're making me feel old.
Yeah, it was kind of. It was it was sort of a thing where he could only have certain options, and that's what he had. And
it's funny.
Yeah.
Funny. So, back to your car show. Any threats that you see as far as being able to keep it up and running other than COVID? I mean, neighbors. Do you feel like you guys have been doing this for so long, it's just an integral part of the community, and
it started to become that a little bit.
Where people are like, you don't have a lot of eyeballs on it, and it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's been something where even the local residents will come over and hang out because they know what's there. And I say, bring the kids, bring the family dog walk around, take a look at certain cars and enjoy it, and of course support the local businesses and let them get the advantage of here comes a bunch of people. So that does help. Some of the things I do fear is when people like what you've talked about with South OC is someone does something dumb because they want to show off, and then once one guy does it, then another guy does it, and then you have some guy racing down the street.
Yeah.
And I did have a situation about 2-3 years ago where a guy decided to go out on the main road and do a brake stand, and we immediately ousted him on social media. And from about LA to the border of San Diego, everyone said, do not show up to our
Shamed
meeting.
him.
That was sort of the straw that broke the camel's back, because at the time there was a lot of this, you'd see videos of guys leaving one of the Cars and Coffee meets and he's sideways out of the parking lot. And Dustin Troyan, who runs Supercar Sunday up there in LA, was one of the first guys to come out and say, this needs to stop. Yeah. And a bunch of us in San Diego kind of got together and we started talking more between all the different organizers and saying, all right, look, we need to get to the point of where when something happens, we need to all know about it, so we know if something happens at one, if it potentially comes to ours, how we can immediately fight it and combat it and not let it happen again.
Ironically, that's everybody's dream video shoot at the car after the car show, right?
Yeah.
The Mustang goes sideways and smashes into something and is destroyed.
I fear that so much.
You know what I mean? Like, and there's 5 or 6 or 7. I'm sure they're at your car show and they all got their videos out.
I've tried to tell people don't watch as people leave, so I don't have an audience.
Right, that's smart, because I think a lot of that encourages car guys. That I'm not giving them an out. That there's no excuse for the behavior.
Yeah.
But everybody's trying to have that. Show off moment, right?
And be Instagram famous for 10 seconds.
Well, I've got customers that have Corvettes with 700, 800, 900 horsepower, and they tell me, I take it to the track. It's
Yeah.
too much.
I've had
I
guys
can't,
like that.
I
Yeah.
cannot, if I'm in a turn and it's hard to get
yeah.
it's hard to not, lose
That's
control
where
of
the
the car.
talent steps
So,
in. And,
yeah, most of these people don't, they haven't gotten professional instruction like you have, or a professional driver. They don't know how to respond.
Yeah.
And so I think,
There's some scary
you
elements
put
there.
600 horsepower in the wrong hands, it's not going to be pretty.
No, it's in a bad way.
Your neighbors aren't going to appreciate it.
No, that's, and I fear that. It's one thing that I've talked about with other people, because of where ours is. We do have a main road, and God forbid a guy loses control, jumps the median, and hits someone head on, and it's a soccer mom,
Right.
and they're going to church, and then that's it. That'll be the end of it.
Yeah,
And
soccer mom on the way to church.
Yeah.
Be the worst combination.
that's the worst combo that I fear. And
Yeah.
thankfully, I'm pretty adamant on the social media aspect of saying, don't do this.
Yeah,
Don't,
stay away if
yeah.
you this
Don't
is
play
important.
the loud music. Don't go burning out down the street. Don't go racing. Don't speed anywhere near it at this point, because that's going to get SDPD to come out. And thankfully, when they have come out, I have had some support from local PD. I actually had the San Diego Police Department's lowrider at my Cars and Coffee a few
kidding.
times.
Oh, great.
And a lot of the guys that patrol that area at one point in time, there's about 4 or 5 that would come and show up, and we all thought, oh no. And they would walk the parking lot and say hi to everybody.
Nice.
And I was lucky enough to talk with them a little bit. One guy grew up with cars with his dad. Another guy grew up with drag boats. So they kind of understood what it was, knew that we weren't doing anything unlawful, and we're trying to support the local business. And I always said to them, if your boss's boss wants to come out, let me know, and we'll do something with them. And
Yeah.
the exchange of respect is definitely there. If you guys can
mutual.
respect. Yeah.
So you said you tried to start up a couple more of these, right?
Yeah.
Temecula, I think you mentioned, and South OC,
Yeah.
if I'm not
Orange
mistaken.
County, yeah.
Somewhere in Orange County.
Yeah, it was right down the street, actually.
Really?
Yeah, right at the Dunkin' Donuts, right down the street from here.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah, was El Toro or where?
Right
were
off El Toro, yeah.
Yeah.
So
I'm guessing that this had you spread out incredibly thin.
yeah.
But tell us the story of, what was the vision, and I assume they kind of stopped now, but
Yeah.
what brought their demise, and
Well,
what's it take?
initially, what was happening with the racing team that I was with, because I met some guys that did legend car racing, and back when I was doing stuff at Cajon Speedway, when legend cars first came out, I said, I want to drive one of those. And met some guys that would bring their legend cars to my car meet. They still come out. I still talk to those guys down there at Scott's Automotive, right there on PCH. And what had happened was I was racing with them and started eating up motors, started eating up money a little bit. So I took 2019 off and said, I'm going to expand this a little bit. And so what if I did one in Orange County? What if I did one in Temecula, and then I had the one in San Diego, and expand the branding of Cars, Coffee, and Donuts, because it's not just,
Right.
cars and coffee, whatever. So we came up here to Orange County, right at the Dunkin' Donuts, and we did it for about a year, and had another donut shop there in Temecula, and same thing, did it for about a year. And initially, we would get 20, 30 cars, then it would kind of dwindle down as other stuff took place at the same time of my meet. Well, I started realizing that there were so many Cars and Coffee meets and so many little ones all around.
Yeah.
You can't just do yours and expect everybody to show up because you're in town. So I decided after a year, I kind of stepped back from those 2 locations and said, I'm just going to do San Diego. And it solidified the San Diego meet. It definitely grew it from that, because now the name is not just in San Diego. We're now in Temecula. We're a little bit in Orange County. People are starting to recognize the logo when they see stuff in the different car groups and car forums. And hey, let's go down to San Diego.
Yeah.
Let's make a weekend out of it. So I've told car clubs, like the Driven Car Club out of Temecula, I said, you guys come down to San Diego, make it a Sunday. And like the Driven guys, it's all exotics. Their rule within their club is you can have a cool, nice exotic car, but you have to drive it. So I finally reached out to them after months of, hey, let's coordinate this, and they came down, and they brought down 25 cars, I think, last month.
Wow.
And it really
Nice.
made it really cool, and we had over 300 people show up. So,
So
it was good.
I've got some of my customers. One of them's in the San Diego area.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of what city is Rancho. What's the name of that rancho?
There's Rancho Bernardo, Rancho Santa Fe.
It's Rancho Santa Fe.
Okay, yeah.
Anyway,
Nice part of
he's
town.
got a lot of exotics,
Yeah.
and he's in an exotic car club.
Yeah.
And they're driving, I don't know, once a month they're
Sure.
out, and they just have a blast. Now, I don't know what they're doing other than driving and
Sure.
going to a place, but quite frankly, I feel like there's other clubs that are just like-minded cars and like-minded individuals getting
Sure.
together
Yeah.
and doing their thing and saying, hey, we're going to start here, we're going to stop over here for donuts or a burrito.
Sure, yeah.
And then we're going to stop at the winery and
Hang out.
not drink
Yeah.
anything, of course.
Sure.
But anyway, so it's really quite interesting and how layered all these car activities are and then sometimes they merge up.
Yeah.
Like, for example, this quarantine cruise, we had the C10 president in here, and he was John Oro. He was on the podcast. And hey, John, you know, so what do you think of this quarantine cruise? Love it. Hey, we were down there in force at the last one. I don't know, the 5th one or whatever. He said, I said, well, how many did you have? He said, well, we rolled in with about 300 C10s.
Yeah.
And I said, well, 300? Are you kidding me? I said, well, how does this happen? He said, well, we met up in Long Beach or in the LBC somewhere, and then, you know, at some location, and they all cruised together to the start point. And I'm like, wow. So here's this kind of combination of stuff, right? Almost like fusion, and that's what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Here's a car club that joins your car show, which is really awesome because it shows, you know, this collaboration, if you will, between car people.
Yeah, I've been lucky we've got some good car clubs there in San Diego and of course in Southern California. And I've told a lot of them, if you guys want to start your Sunday with us, we start at 7 a.m. and then go cruise after. And speaking of the C10 club, the C10 San Diego club does that. And they've got about anywhere from 10 guys to sometimes 25 guys will come out, and they'll take up one whole section of the parking lot, and they're all great guys. They all hang out. They support the Starbucks that's there. They support the little donut shop that's there. And you know, usually as I'm running around, I say hi to them, and I always say hi to the president and tell him, hey, thank all the guys for me, because he knows I'm busy and running around. And I'll see them at other stuff where I can actually hang out with them when I'm not at my meet. And you know, other car clubs that are down there, they've done that. And you know, they start there, then they go on their cruise up to some local like canyon spots we have there in San Diego. We do have some good driving roads down there. So
well, that's awesome. I'm glad you've got all those partnerships with other clubs.
It's been good.
Really cool. So, never had a chance to, and I'm kind of envious about your background. Now, I never had a chance to race cars. Always wanted to. I think everybody does. But are you a short track oval guy, or are you straight ahead guy? I mean, are you both?
I've done both. I've almost done all of it, really.
Yeah, but is there one that you like more than the other, or do you?
Lately, it's been a little bit more of the short track oval stuff, because when I started, that's what I was doing. I was only wrenching on them, and it's like, I really want to try this. And when I used to work for a company called K1 Speed. Everyone knows it.
They're awesome. They got one down here in Irvine, right?
When I worked for the Carlsbad location, Boris said, who's a well-known road racer, is involved with the company financially, and he would show up on like Saturday mornings before we opened. And of course, I'm a manager, and I was like, oh God, one of the owners is here. Yeah. Got one of the chances to really talk to Boris, and he said the one thing to do, no matter what, is drive it all. Don't just keep yourself in one genre, because you never know where it's going to land you when it comes to racing. Drive what you can, while you can, when you can. You don't want to be 60 and go, well, it'd be great to drive it, but I'm not going to be able to drive it to the level that, you know, I really could have if I was, you know, 20 years younger. So I've sort of taken lately in the last 5 years of getting to everything, go to driving schools. So I've driven sprint cars. I've driven legend cars competitively between Irwindale Speedway and Orange Show Speedway. Done a little bit of other short track stuff with some late models through some schools. I've driven road cars through schools, did Formula Renault, which came from the karting aspect of it, was able to go and do some Formula Renault driving. And
very cool.
You kind of take everything you learn in karting and move it on up to the next step. And that's really the aspect of which I wish I did 20, 30 years ago. I wish I was karting at a younger age, because I'd probably be a lot better driver than I am now. I've had some close calls doing stuff.
Let's talk about your closest call to death. I mean, have you been on that? Have you been at that point where like this isn't going to end good?
Yeah, I've been on fire. Being on fire, you don't want to be. I had an engine blow up in the legend car, and did
you have a complete fire suit on?
Yeah. You're full. Yeah, full Nomex. I mean, it's 110 degrees in LA on a Saturday, and you're out there trying to qualify or run a heat race. You look down and you've got flames at your feet, and go, oh, this isn't good. So that was one of the bad ones, and I ended up getting the car stopped and got out of the car, and I'm trying to reach for the fire bottle. By the time I reached for the fire bottle, got out of the car, the fire department was already on top of me, and it's like, okay, I'm walking away from it. And so that was a pretty
scared
close
you, like I could barbecue in here.
That was a close one, because you start to fumble with your belt a little bit. It's always your adrenaline starts going, and they teach you in driving school, just breathe. If it gets smoky, hold your breath, hit the cam lock, and roll out of the car. And thankfully, I didn't quite have to roll out of the car, but it was like, out of the car, don't.
But the instruction worked.
Yeah, don't hang out. So
yeah,
out of the car quick. I've had some good ones karting. I'm still kind of feeling it in my ribs from a karting accident from a few years back. Yeah, so I've
what's this poor kid on the line? He was driving I don't know what the heck he was driving. Like, it was a tuner.
Yeah.
And he was going down the street, and they were racing.
Oh, God.
And, you know, and then the guy says, hey, man, the car's smoking. You better pull over. Well, I can't pull over right now. But he kept smoking. They were on the freeway. And he finally says, pull over. And he says, I can't. The brakes aren't working.
Oh, geez.
So the car was on fire so bad the brakes weren't working. And it finally just pulled over. But by the time they got pulled over, burning, smoking, fire.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, they both barely got out. That car just burnt to the ground.
Yeah.
And it can happen on the street. It can happen,
Yeah.
but those people are less
thing.
qualified because
Yeah.
at least you're wearing a suit.
At least I'm in a fire suit. I tell you, 110 degrees inside a car, and you're in the heat, waiting to qualify, and you're sitting there, and your helmet's on. Oh, someone just oiled down the track. Well, you can't get out of the car. Oh, great. Your endurance kicks in a little bit. You realize how much do you really want to do this?
As you get older,
yeah,
you ask that question more and more, right?
I was just in Arizona for Labor Day weekend and did some karting, and it was 122 degrees air temp, and I was in full karting gear, full rib vest, full helmet, and just the other guys that were there were like, "How are you doing this?" Like, well, I trained for it. I've been in full Nomex doing this, so this is nothing.
Well, that's what Martina Kwan said. Jay and I, we had her on our show twice now. And she said, I train in those suits.
Yeah.
And you have to get acclimated. I mean, you're in the desert sometimes.
Sure. Yeah, that's where most of it is in the desert. And when I train and work out, I'm running with 20 pounds in each arm, which is hard to do. I do about 2 miles to 3 miles. You do that with even 5 pounds in each hand and you're hurting, because in karting you're so much like this. And even in racing, you're like this a lot, all the stress through here. And then, of course, it's the way you diet and the way you sleep and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it probably explains why all those race car drivers look like jockeys.
Yeah,
135 pounds dripping wet.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I'm about 200 with all my gear on, and you know it. Getting out after a good day of racing, you feel it.
So we didn't talk about what's in your garage yet, but you got to tell us what's in the garage, maybe what's in the driveway, or what's on the side of the garage. I mean, that's how I grew up. Well, there was also what's on the street.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, feel free to cover any of those areas.
Oh, man.
Most of the stuff was outside the garage.
I haven't had too many cars, actually. It's my first vehicle was a truck, of all things. And, of course, being in Southern California, a lot of guys like to lift their trucks. I lowered mine. I wanted to go racing. And then I had a Volkswagen GTI for a while, and right now I have just a simple Mazda because it's a driver. And I don't have something cool on the street because I'm going to track days and I'm going to other auto events, and it's something where I'm driving to Las Vegas for SEMA, I'm driving out to Arizona for an event, and that's about as far as I drive. The rest of it I'll fly. So it's sort of a thing where the money goes to the gate fees and the tires and the fuel for the race car versus
where do you keep your race cars? Where do you store all this stuff?
Right now, my go-kart actually sits in my kitchen because I don't have a garage. I just have a simple one-bedroom apartment, and I don't have a roommate. So because I don't have a way to store it, it's sitting in where my kitchen table would be.
Do you put a tabletop on top of your car?
No, it actually has the karting cover over it, and every now and then someone comes over and goes, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, here, let me show you." And I peel the cover back, and their eyes come out of their head, like, "Wait, is that what I think it is?" Like, yeah. And
does that get the girls or not? I'm just wondering.
A little bit. It's gotten a couple.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like 2.
All right. I was thinking the opposite.
They get curious.
Like, this guy's pretty dedicated to this whole, bachelor thing, right?
Yeah.
It's, serious.
A complete bachelor pad. I have a corner where it's like, here's like tires, here's the cart, here's like two glass like trophy cases that are sitting there, and they start realizing, wait a minute, what does this guy do? And it just becomes one big ball of.
So it goes out the garage, okay? You don't have to disassemble it or anything like that.
To be able to get it
turn
out,
it sideways.
I actually have to pick it up, turn it sideways, walk it through the door, put it back down on the cart stand.
Now, wait a minute, you don't do that by yourself. You call in your pit crew on that one?
I call my buddies for that.
Oh,
so when I
okay.
first moved in, there were a bunch of people hanging out right by the pool where I live, and we kind of wheeled it over, and a few people are like, "What is that?" And my buddy and I picked it up, turned it sideways, and walked it to the front door, and they all went, "Holy crap, is that what I think it is?" I was like, "Yeah, it's a go-kart, I race cars," and it kind of sits in there. So, but I'm lucky enough too that where I know people, so I don't always have to run my cart. I can drive for other people, and I'm getting to where I'm known a little bit more, and I can say, "Hey, I'd love to race your car sometime," and well, this is what it's going to cost. Okay, let's see what you can do. And it's kind of always the first few laps are always a little nervous, but thankfully I've got some guys behind me that help me out, and I've had them for years working with me and stuff. And
very cool.
They kind of know what's involved when I say, "Hey, we're going racing," and they kind of roll their eyes, "Oh boy, here we go."
Well, you know what I learned today is I've got to add that to my repertoire. What is in your living room?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm thinking garage.
Yeah.
Side of the house.
I've got a couch sitting there, TV. I'm barely ever home because I'm always doing car stuff. So I've got the simple stuff there, typical bachelor pads, so to speak.
Yeah. So what else is going on in the car scene that you see that's, maybe that's been hatched by COVID, out of the ashes,
Sure.
or do you see anything that's really, other than these cruises that, I mean, we're hearing all kinds of stuff, and I haven't gone to one, but these drive-in theaters are booming right now.
Yeah, I actually went to a drive-in about a couple weeks ago. Got together with some friends. I was like, I'd never been to a drive-in. We hadn't seen a few of my other car buddies in a while. I'm like, well, let's get together. What are we going to do? Well, we can't go to the movies. Oh, let's go to a drive-in. Okay, let's go to a drive-in. So we went, had a good time, and hung out. And there was a lot of people there.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
What a great comeback story for a
Yeah.
drive-in movie theater.
Yeah.
That's, you know, that's where I saw Jaws for the first time.
Okay, yeah.
I was up in Washington. It's like, you know, when presidents are shot
Yeah.
or 9/11, where were you?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I remember where I was exactly
Yeah.
when Jaws happened.
That's
I was at the
incredible.
drive-in.
My parents would tell me horror stories because my dad loved to fish. And
Yeah.
Mom told me when they first saw it in the theater, of all things, she refused to even take a shower. She's like, I'm not going anywhere.
Not going in the water.
Dad, who loved to fish, and at the time they lived in San Francisco, and of course the Farallon Islands, which is great white territory. Dad, he'd go fishing. He didn't care, you know. And it's like, you know, you get in a boat that's about a 40, 50-foot boat, you get a 15-foot shark alongside you. It's like, okay.
But see, we romanticize, at least I do, the drive-in theater because, you know, we probably went to the drive-in as much as we went to the normal theater.
Sure.
Because we could get all our friends in there, and even the people that weren't our friends were in the trunk.
Yeah.
So the non-friends were in the trunk.
Yeah.
The real friends were inside the car.
Yeah,
you know?
sure.
And then we made them go buy all the condiments, so they had to get the popcorn
yeah.
and the sodas. Okay?
Yeah, they had that whole element there. It was cool to go and do. So
Oh,
I may have to go do it again here in the next month or so. See what it's
Anything
like.
else you see out on the car scene that's kind of new and exciting? Or?
It's you know, it's interesting to see where trends are headed and that sort of thing with the aspect of what's happening through social media and like we've talked about with the content aspect and you know what's going to happen with my meet necessarily within the next year if this COVID thing keeps going. How much are we going to be able to continue it?
Great question.
You know, and other aspects of I've been told, how are you going to make money from this? And it's like, well, I don't know if initially I want to make money from it. I want to have fun and enjoy it. You start making it more like a business because I try and run it like a business, but I'm not running it as a profitable business, so to speak.
Yeah.
So that's going to change things a little bit. Car shows are going to change for sure if they can't bring them back. That's going to get more people going to cars and coffee meets for sure.
I think
still
so.
Going.
Well, we saw here, and I'm sure you saw it too. When it got shut down for 2-3 months or whatever, all these shows, it was insatiable, the appetite to get to the car show. So, I mean, people can only be trapped inside with their cars for so long. They've got to get out.
They've got to get out.
So,
we're in Southern California.
Yeah,
it's a driving state, especially San Diego. You know, you got to drive to get somewhere. And people want to feel normal for 10 minutes or for a couple hours. So go to the cars and
It does make you feel normal.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially for us car people.
Yeah.
Not the rest of people. They don't look at us as normal. By the way. Right.
They don't.
Just so you know.
Yeah.
We're not normal.
No.
We got a problem.
Yeah.
So you mentioned social media. How do people find out more about, Cars and Coffee and Donuts San Diego and all that great stuff on social media?
The biggest thing is our Facebook fan page that we have, just called Cars, Coffee, Donuts San Diego, I believe. We do have an Instagram page, which is actually called Cars, Coffee, Donuts SoCal. And the reason why it's called SoCal is because I lost the original Instagram account for some reason.
What?
I had shared a photo of a photographer. He complained to Instagram, and Instagram took the account away immediately.
Wow.
And I said, well, at the time I was expanding into Orange County and Temecula. I said, well, why don't I just call it SoCal because I'm expanding the brand of it. So then since I've stepped back a little bit, it's just San Diego. I've kept that aspect of it. And then, of course, we have a Twitter account, which I think is just called CC and DSD.
Okay.
And that kind of bounces what we're doing on Instagram and on Facebook with the content on there and that sort of thing. And as we do stuff with our meets, I put other people's meets there locally on there. And what else is going on in the car world? What's going on with the SoCal car scene in the podcast they have, or what's Jay Leno doing this week? What's he's out driving? What's some of the YouTube guys? What are they building? And trying to put that on there to add to the car culture aspect of what we've got going on.
Well, I've looked at your content. It's really great.
Thank
you. It's diverse and it's interesting, and I know you put a lot of thought into it. So greatly appreciate what you're doing. Not just running the show and making that available for us car crazy people, but helping us, stay entertained, especially while we live in this strange bubble, right?
It's amazing to just find there's so much going on within the car world. It's not just one aspect. It's, you got the tuner guys over here, the hot rod guys are doing this, and SEMA's coming up. God, what are these guys doing? And at least it was coming up, so that's...
It's all right, you get SEMA virtual now, Brad.
Yeah, and that's going to change things too. The big trade shows aren't happening this year. With SEMA not going on, PRI not going on in Indianapolis.
Jay just brought that to my attention.
Yeah.
PRI, it's huge.
They just announced that this week, that they're not going to happen.
Well, the best of luck to you.
Thank you.
I'm sure you guys will continue to be successful, and everybody get out there and blow that show up.
Yeah.
I know Brad can't wait to have 600 people. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, we can do 600.
Okay, all right.
I think our last meet was actually 600 people. We had about 320 cars. I stopped counting after 320.
Wow.
Two people per car, you're at 600 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
It is. Well, Brad, I can't thank you enough. That was an awesome ride. Thanks for joining us
of course.
on the SoCal Car Scene.
Yeah.
And for those of you watching us today, don't forget all of our episodes are on our YouTube channel, The SoCal Car Scene, all separate words, very important, where you can see all of our videos of our incredible guests like Brad today. Please watch, follow, most importantly, subscribe. Hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode. If you prefer to listen to these episodes, please go to all your favorite podcast platforms like Apple iTunes, Stitcher, Buzzsprout, Google Play, and the SoCal Car Storage /media page. Thank you so much for listening and watching.